Ladies and gents, last but not least, we have another speaker. It was very nice to have from Frankfurt to Berlin, then from Silicon Valley and London to Berlin, and now we have Rona van der Zander. And it's so much fun to say the name, Rona van der Zander. Rona is the co-founder and entrepreneur doing Cypress. Cypress is a podcasting solution for organizations. And we're very, very excited for Rona's confession. What do you have to confess? Rona, the stage is all yours.
Thank you. I turn this so I can see it. I have a confession to make. I'm the co-founder of a software company, but I'm also a countryside bumpkin. And I moved to the countryside during the Corona crisis. Now, here you can see me in my new habitat, my vegetable garden. And why this is a confession and what this has to do with the future of work, I will tell you in the next few minutes. First of all, I've also brought you a question, and I would like to know who of you guys is currently living in Berlin? Okay, everyone is living in Berlin. And who of you guys had the feeling, especially during the Corona crisis and the times of lockdown, that they needed to go out more into nature, that they wished maybe to have a house with a garden, weekend trips to Brandenburg? Who of you guys felt this way? Wow, I would say, what do you guys say? 3/4? Like, how is that, 75% in the room? Yeah, 75%? Okay, a lot of you. Actually, research shows that around 40% of people living in a flat during the Corona crisis had the desire to move into a house with a garden. And I think this is interesting because on the one hand, Corona showed us that we are humans and that we are part of nature and that we need nature. And on the other hand, also it became possible for many of us to work remote. Now here today, we're a bit in the startup bubble, and I guess most of you were already working remote, but in Germany, digitalization is not so much our thing. And it really gave us a huge boost through the Corona crisis, and around 70% of companies moved into remote work. And some even say now that office centricity is entirely over and the future will be remote first. And again, I think it's interesting that we need Corona crisis for this, because we know already for a long time, there was a lot of research already before that showed us that employees are much happier, healthier, engaged, productive if they can work remote. And Corona, I think, really put this out as well, that many of us realized what a great opportunity that actually is. I think this is an opportunity, but it will also pose one of the greatest challenges to our society in the future, because on the one hand, we will have people that can work remote, and on the other hand, we have the people that cannot. And I think this will be a huge challenge for society to see even greater division between the knowledge workers that can work remote and the ones that cannot. I think there are opportunities in that as well, but certainly also great challenges. I want to focus on the ones that can work remote today and deep dive a little bit deeper into that and what that actually means. Now, I myself have been working in quite a few countries as well. I lived abroad for 10 years. I lived in China for a long time. I lived in Beijing. I lived in Australia. I lived in Melbourne. This is Sydney, who can spot it correctly, but I didn't have a cool photo in Melbourne somehow. So I was in Melbourne, and I definitely lost my heart in New York when I lived in New York for quite a while. So I was always a big city girl. I love big cities. And when I returned to Germany after 10 years, there was just one city to go to, and that was Berlin, of course. So I moved to Berlin, and I co-founded Cypress with these guys. And this is a confession now, particularly to Pascal and Arthur, the guys on the right. If they're watching on YouTube, I confess it to you, because I always said, guys, we need an office. We need to meet in person. We need to feel our vibes. We can't just be online. We have to sit together to innovate. And especially our techies, Arthur and Pascal, they never really got me. They always said, Rona, you know, we have our laptops in the basement and we're doing our thing. Why do you want to work together? And we were quite digital before, but of course, Corona also pushed us in being 100% remote. And we really realized that it works very well. And also I had the chance to move out of Berlin to the countryside, and I realized I'm the happiest working under the hazelnut tree in the garden, having my veggie patch, and I really enjoyed working 100% remote. And again, research also showed this. By now we have this research where we see that people that can work remote are very happy, they want to continue to do so. And of course, companies as well, because they see it saves costs, people are productive, and they're also happy. And I think this is pretty revolutionary, because if we think of the office that was the center of our lives so far, and if that is not the case anymore, that will have, of course, an impact on where we live, right? Because usually we were in a home close to our office, so we didn't have to travel so far. It will impact on where we go shopping. We won't pick up things anymore on the way home because we're not going home, because we're working remote or from home. It will have an impact on where our kids go to school, if we assume that that is still a place for quite a while, and also where we go to the gym, where we have free time activities. So all that will be disrupted through this office centricity being taken out of our lives. And I think we have the smart city guys here as well, innovation and so on. Amazing. What will our cities look like in the future if it's not dominated by offices anymore? And even though I had to put some pictures in from the last month living this remote life, right? This is the view from under my hazelnut tree. So this is where I worked most days. I started obviously growing my own veggies, so I'm a very proud tomato mama now, and I had to put some tomatoes. They're really good, right? I had to put some tomatoes in this presentation, so I'm growing my own veggies. And this is the lake that's around 3 minutes from our house in the countryside. You see here, that's a morning picture. The fog is still hovering over the lake. This is where I go for morning walks and evening walks. And I really enjoyed this, and I really lived this remote life, yeah? But I also realized very much that remote is not a physical status. It's much more a mindset, right? Like we always say, new work needs inner work, right? Because what we've seen a lot during the last few months is that simply what happened, what we did before offline, we're now doing it online. And let's face it, some things that were already pretty horrible offline, and they're even worse if we do them online. So BIA has 130,000 video calls per day. Now, BIA is, of course, a large company, but if you think of how many video calls that are, how much people are hanging in synchronous calls, and how often you say, this Zoom conference could have been an email, yeah? Or I would say it could have been a podcast, but I tell you a bit more about that in a second. So my question is really now, living this remote work, how can we really get from remote is not just space, but really also time? How can we really move from this old paradigm of presence culture into really a new era and not just transfer from what we knew before into the new space that is online? So how can we really start the new era? And with Cycross, we are building a software, Darius already mentioned that in the beginning, for podcasts and audio messages that are shared inside of companies. So you can record voice messages or podcasts whenever you feel like it, and then you can send it to your colleagues and they can listen to it whenever they feel like it. So I don't have to stand with my laptop in the veggie patch, right, to be in the video call. So that's kind of the idea. And now working with clients, not only since the Corona crisis, but that's of course always our question. How do we move from presence culture really into a new era of communication, into a new era of working? And of course, increasing flexibility is always a big question, but here again, you see with a laptop, so how can we get out of that? How can we move from mass emails and too much information into streamlined communication? How can we downsize this? And of course, how can we reduce inefficient meetings? How can we reduce message repetition? And how can we just get to better workflow there? And also democratization of knowledge and information, increasing informal exchange. For us, an answer is really audio messages, where people can listen, that everyone has a voice, everyone can upload things, everyone can listen. But I think also here's a super interesting point, because we say now a lot that we need offices to meet accidental, right, in the corridor, to have a coffee together. I don't know how often you heard this in the last few months. And I think it's so crazy that as organizations, we leave it to happen by accident, that people meet and have a coffee and be innovative. Plus, we have seen all these past years that all companies are still stuck in silos, right? So the office clearly hasn't helped. So what are the opportunities there to do it differently? And I talked to Sasha the other day. He's working a lot with remote teams. And he said to me, for me, there are two things in the future that are important. And the one is default to no. I say no to meetings. I say no to events. I want to do everything in an asynchronous way. So whatever it is in terms of meetings, team discussions, feedback sessions, how can we shift it into an asynchronous working mode? And of course, there is written communication, but possibly also audio or other tools that we can use to get out of video calls and transferring our old world into the new world. And that's also the question I would leave you with. I mean, we are here face-to-face tonight, most of us. Some aren't, but we are quite a few people in the room. What's the real value of being here face-to-face, having the opportunity to talk to each other? And what can we also from this carry into our organizations to see how we can get out of this old paradigm and say, no, we can do it asynchronous, we can work differently, we don't have to hang in video calls all day without toilet breaks even, but maybe we can record a podcast for each other or an audio message and also see how we can shift things. And then that's the last image I leave you with, me in the veggie patch and the question of what should this picture look like in the future? What should the new reality really look like? And what do we want to chop off? What do we want to get rid of? And what do we want to nourish in this new world? Like, I nourish my tomatoes. And you are, of course, all very welcome to visit and see the countryside and see how wonderful 100% remote work can be and can work.
Do we have any questions? Yes, we do.
Hi, thanks for your talk. Very interesting. Can you describe your idea of collaboration when you talk about asynchronous work? There's no physical or no even overlap in terms of time.
Yeah, I mean, we are using our software since a few weeks ourselves as well because it's ready and we are totally loving it as a team and we're really sending indeed a lot of voice messages to each other. And for example, we had one example the other day where a guy of the team, he had an idea over the weekend and he wrote, still old mindset, he wrote like a bullet point list of this. And Monday morning I said to him, I don't want to read this. Tell me your idea, you know. And then he sent me a 3-minute voice recording and said, you know, this is the idea I had. I had all his passion, I had all his explanation, and then he recorded it when he had time and I listened to it when I had time. In the veggie patch kind of thing. So, and these kind of things, we do still have touch points in person, and I think that's also important to talk, to see each other, but also realization really as a team was that when we now meet in person, we don't work. We drink, we party, we eat, we talk, we build trust, which I think that's still a bit difficult over the screen. But we don't really work, and if then we still go in a hangout to share our screen and look at the stuff because it's just the easiest way to do it. So I think seeing whatever we can shift into the asynchronous, and then we really mainly meet to discuss things really quicker than if you do it asynchronous. If that answers.
Thank you. We have another question here.
Yeah, thanks for your speech again. And maybe just one small point what I would like to share from my experience is beside voice messages, also screen shares really helps when you write some list and then you just communicate and speak it. And if some of your teammates is too slow, you just put 2x speed and it really helps to save time. My question is, you mentioned this importance of informal part. Yeah, actually we definitely miss in this online world. And maybe you can, share more ideas if you have what actually we could do to improve it. I mean, for example, in our team, sometimes we have this drinking evenings, yeah, where we just drink and speak, communicate. Also, we think that maybe it's worth to order everybody pizza, especially when we are located in different cities. Maybe anything else.
Yeah, I mean, I think that what we saw with a lot of companies now, that they do their drinks, like their lunches or their drinks in the digital space, and it's same but different. Like I would say, you know, you still sit there together and you can talk and so on. But I think what is super interesting about the informal exchange is really, and our question also was Cycross, which the name is actually, it comes from crossing the silos. That was our original idea. You record messages and any department, anyone can listen to it, right? And right now, I think knowledge is so stuck in the silos, and also exchange is so stuck in silos or where people are working. And there, for example, if you have the culture, because that's what we see with a lot of companies, they say, not everyone can record a podcast here, yeah? And that has to go through communications department, and we are deciding who even has the right to record something and to share something. Our software, though, is built that everyone that is a user can record and can listen, yeah? So if you have the culture that works, technically anyone can share an idea on Sunday night or on Monday morning, and anyone can listen to it and get in touch with that person and then say, okay, maybe we want a synchronous call now, or I record another message and attach it to your message. So I think that, and also making things transparent, right? Like I can search through things, I can see knowledge that maybe has already left the company, that's now stuck in alumni clubs where no one really knows how to get access to them. So I think that's a huge challenge, and it's of course even more important if we are remote and if we're not meeting accidentally.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Two more questions. Wow. Okay.
Yeah, hi. First, yeah, it's really awkward.
No, I feel totally normal. Why would you say that? Why?
Just my feelings, right? So thanks for the talk, first of all. Really exciting topic. I'm also leading a startup, and we're also in this kind of space of new work. First, I would like to say one note, you're making the messages audio, and we're dealing a lot with making text messages structured more for companies, so they can extract knowledge out of that.
Maybe we can collaborate.
Yeah, it's really hard, but I mean, like, audio is getting even harder, and that's good for us because technology is going to be more in demand in the future. But the question is that while leading a team, my experience is that leading team is a lot about energy, right? And getting the energy through the digital channel is quite hard, right? And how do you perceive this challenge with what you do and with the experience you have with other companies?
That you get people energized?
Yeah.
I think super interesting question, and I think it goes down. I work a lot with universities as one in the education system, and it goes down to that we just ruin it all when the kids go to school, kind of thing. I mean, for me, a lot originates there, that basically we don't really learn to be self-motivated, to work self-structured and so on. We come from a system where you have someone always telling you what's right and wrong in like 45-minute slots, right? And I think we have to change a lot there already, how we prepare people for such a working world. And you definitely, I think David is the better person to ask the remote working skills. How can you train and test and see if you hire people, if they have the right skills? But we in our team, of course, we're all like highly motivated, we're building on an exciting topic and a great idea, and we have this drive and this passion. I still think it's important we have regular touch points to also, check in and, exchange this idea as well. But I think first of all, you need the people, of course, with the right mindset, and that is something that I think we should start much earlier, people to prepare for this disruptive world, and where you constantly have to be self-motivated, self-learning. You have to keep up to the speed and the pace. Otherwise, you are lost in many jobs and many sectors now anyway, right? So yeah, and then some audio messages also motivating, if you like. But yeah, it's something, that's nice if you have touch points and hear from each other, and it's much more intimate, and you can share much more than only with written communication, of course.
Yeah, thanks. I think we can borrow a lot of things from audio concerts they're doing right now online, and how artists perceive this challenge to their audience. Yeah. And I think CEOs could learn really a lot from that.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right, the grand finale, the 100,000 mark question for you, if you remember. Not really. Now the pressure is high. Do you guys remember the 100,000 mark show? No?
Like a point to add if you have one.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Well, first of all, thank you for the presentation. This research you made on remote work is very interesting, and that's why I wanted to ask you Did you see the change in productivity, effectiveness, and motivation in general since working remotely within your own team and within research you've made, people you've interviewed?
I think super interesting question. Have to quickly self-reflect. I think that it was definitely a switch as well. You need to get used to it first of all. I believe that, and I think you need to find new routines, of course, as well, how you structure your day, how you want to work. And of course, we're all still stuck in a way in the 9 to 5. When do most people work? We also, most people don't work at night, even though you may be a night person and things like this. So finding this new routine, how you can work. But yeah, I think for me, it has been real on a personal level, really motivating to also be in the space, really have the nature, the garden, go out. I walk a lot on calls now, just over the ground. I'm out in nature a lot. Again, of course, a lot of audio messages and stuff I just put in my ear. I think that's also a point, getting away from the screen, right? Not only video calls, but screen all day. I often just put voice messages in my head and take a walk. And so for me, yeah, it has been really productive and really good. And I think in our team as well, we're all on fire. We really want to get this thing going. So maybe not the best comparison, but what I read in research as well, one, that people are happy, productive, and so on, and that this definitely research has shown this. And also what I find super interesting, of course, given the fact that this was a global pandemic and some people had kids at home, right, Darius, you also suffered, and it was all crazy. Even now we see that a lot of health insurances did research in Germany, and they see that people really generally had better mental health, they felt more productive and so on, often because they didn't have this way to work anymore. They had better work-life balance, more time with their kids. So I think there's a lot in that as well, but we definitely have to find new routines and new structures, of course, to then also be productive, right? That's, I think, the challenge there.
All right. You had the question, right?
Yeah. Okay. Thank you for the presentation. My question is, what's gonna happen if Slack added a voice recorder or conversation voice? So what's gonna then make Cycros unique or features? I mean, to be an alternative.
Yeah. I don't know how much I can say. We have this YouTube spying here, right on the left in my face. But of course, that's a topic right now. Slack doesn't have a voice, but we already see that Teams, for example, has voice integration. And I think the key thing, I can show you our app in a minute. It's so pretty, and the user experience is, of course, absolutely fabulous.
Yes.
So it's really the consumer app. It's like you know it from from Spotify or iTunes or so. So you have shows you can follow, you can subscribe. We have authorization concepts, so which message goes to which person. And I think that Slack can get already pretty messy at the moment, to say the least. So I think if you have audio in there, who will really consume it, right? And if you, for example, you have a CEO message from a CEO, a podcast to the whole audience, to the whole workforce, it's really you can send it out and I can hear it in the car. You can connect it to the car. We have CarPlay, and you can consume it on the way to work or wherever in your walk in the forest. So I think how really the user experienced it and what authorization concepts there are, I think that is what makes us unique. And some other things too, I can tell you off camera.
All right, there seems to be many more questions actually, and we're going to take this off camera.
Good.
And then you can spill the juices there. Yeah. And so Rona, thank you very, very much. This was very, very insightful.